Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there lived a very beautiful and kind queen. On a cold winter day, the queen was doing needlework by a black ebony window. She was so lost in thought that the needle pierced her hand, and 3 drops of blood fell. She got up and walked over to the window and looked outside. The snow is falling white, the snowflakes are as soft as cotton balls. Looking at that wonderful scene, she said to herself,
"Oh, how I wish that I had a daughter that had skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony."
9 months later, she gave birth to a daughter with skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony, so she named the baby Princess Snow White. But sadly, the queen died as soon as Snow White was born. Soon after, the king got married to another wife. The new queen is beautiful but arrogant, cruel, and she does not want anyone to be as beautiful as her. She owned a magic mirror. Whenever she looks at herself in front of the mirror, she often asks, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" The mirror answered,
"You, my queen, are the fairest of all."
This pleased the queen greatly, as she knew that her magical mirror could speak nothing but the truth. When Snow White grew up, she became a very charming young lady. When the princess was 14 years old, she was as beautiful as the sunshine. One day, the queen stood in front of the magical mirror and asked, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" This time the mirror answered,
"You, my queen, are fair, it is true. But Snow White is even fairer than you."
When the queen heard that, she was shocked, and became furious. Since then, whenever she saw Snow White, she was upset and angry. Then she started to hate the girl so much. Her jealousy and envy became more and more intense, making her angry and upset every day. She often scolds at Snow White. One day she called upon a huntsman and said,
"Bring Snow White to the forest and kill her, then come back here with her heart as the proof of evidence."
The poor huntsman took Snow White into the deep forest. But when he was about to kill her, Snow White cried and said,
"Please, can you not kill me? I will stay in the forest and never return to the castle."
Seeing the little girl sobbing, the hunter pitifully said,
"Go hide in the forest, I'm so sorry, princess."
He thought.
Then wild animals will come and eat her.
But he was so relieved that he didn't have to kill the little girl. Suddenly a little deer ran up to him. He killed the deer instead and took its heart back to the castle, gave it to the queen and told a lie that it was Snow White's heart. Snow White was now all alone in the jungle, and she did not know what to do. The trees seemed to whisper to each other. Poor Snow White was so frightened, beginning to run fast. She ran over sharp stones and through thorns. She ran as far as her feet could carry her, and just before the evening was about to fall she saw a little house and went inside in order to take a rest. Everything in the house is tiny, pretty and neat. There was a little table with a tidy, white tablecloth. On the table there are 7 pretty small plates, each comes with a set of spoon, knife, fork, and next to is a small glass. Against a wall there were 7 little beds, all in a row and covered with quilts. Because she was so hungry and thirsty, Snow White ate a bit of vegetables and a little bread from each little plate, and from each cup she drank a bit of juice. Afterwards, because she was so tired, she laid down on one of the little beds and fell asleep right away. Later that day, the owners of the house returned home. They were the 7 dwarves who were gold miners in the mountain. They lit 7 candles, and when the lights shone through the house, they could tell that someone had been there, for not everything was in the same order as they had left it.
"Who has been sitting in my chair? Who has been eating from my plate? Who has been eating my bread?
Who has been eating my vegetables?
Who has been drinking from my cup? Who has been eating with my fork? Looks like someone is lying on my bed."
When the 7th one was looking at his bed, he found Snow White lying there asleep. The 7 dwarves all ran up, and they cried out with amazement,
"Oh good heaven, she is so gorgeous."
They were so happy that they did not wake her up, but let her continue to sleep in the bed. The next morning when Snow White woke up, she told them everything. The 7 dwarfs invited Snow White to stay there with them and told her not to worry. They also did not forget to warn her to always stay at home, in case her stepmother finds a way to harm her. So Snow White stayed in that house, took a good care of the house every day. Every evening, when the 7 dwarves come home from work, a hearty meal is ready. Now the queen, after reading the heart of the deer, which she thought belonged to Snow White, looking in the mirror again and said, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" It answered,
"You, my queen, are fair, it is true. But Snow White, who lived beyond the mountains with the 7 dwarves, is still 1,000 times fairer than you."
She was very angry. She couldn't sleep all night. At last she thought of something. The next day, she dressed herself up as an old woman selling combs and mirrors. She went to the house of the 7 dwarves, knocked on the door, and said,
"Mirror and comb, fine wares to sell, fine wares to sell."
Snow White looked through the window and saw that it was not her stepmother, so she opened the door and asked to buy a comb. The old woman took out a beautiful ivory comb and said,
"Let me brush your hair. Oh, your hair is as black as ebony."
Snow White let her brush, but as soon as the comb touched her beautiful hair, she fell down in front of the door and got fainted. It turned out that the comb was soaked in poison. The cruel old woman left immediately. Fortunately, that day the 7 dwarves suddenly felt anxious and went home early. They found Snow White lying on the doorstep. Seeing that the comb was in her hair, they quickly took it off. Snow White gradually woke up. She told them everything that happened. This time, the 7 dwarfs warned Snow White not to go out again and not to open the door for anyone else. The queen returned to the castle, stood in front of the magic mirror again and said, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" It answered,
"You, my queen, are fair, it is true. But Snow White, who lived beyond the mountains with the 7 dwarves, is still 1,000 times fairer than you."
When the queen heard that, she was very angry. She went into her most mysterious room that no one else was allowed inside. She made a poison and put it on ripe apples, a basket of ripe red apples, fragrant and sweet, but anyone who might eat a little piece of it would die instantly. Then she disguised herself as an old country woman, traveled to the house and knocked on the door. But Snow White, sitting inside the house, answered emphatically,
"I must not let anyone in. The 7 dwarfs have forbidden me to do so."
It's okay. I just got back from visiting my daughter. She picked me some delicious apples. Please let me sit here and rest for a while. Well, I'll give you one. Do you want to eat it?
Snow White looked at the delicious fresh apples. After a moment of hesitation, she stuck her hand out and took the poisoned apple. She barely had a bite in her mouth when she fell to the ground dead. The queen was so happy that she shouted,
"Skin as white as snow, mouth as red as lipstick, hair as black as ebony. Well, from now on, the most beautiful person in the world is me, not you."
When she returned to the castle, she asked the mirror again, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" The mirror finally answered,
"You, my queen, are the fairest of all."
The queen laughed. Her cruel and jealous heart was at rest finally. When the dwarves came home that evening, they found Snow White lying on the ground. She was not breathing at all. She was dead, but she still looked as lively as a living person. They put her in a transparent glass coffin and cried for 3 days and 3 nights. Then they put the coffin outside on a mountain, and 2 of them always stayed with it and watched over her. One day, a prince from a neighboring kingdom passed by where Snow White was rest in peace. He approached and looked at the young woman lying as if she had been asleep. The prince asked the 7 dwarf about her and he was told the story of what had happened. The prince was very merciful. So he said to the 7 dwarves,
Hearing Snow White's painful story, I feel like I can't live without her. I want to bring her back to my palace so that she won't have to lie alone forever in this lonely place. I will honor her and respect her as my most cherished one.
When the 7 dwarves heard the prince say that, they agreed to let him take care of the coffin, even though they also greatly missed Snow White. The prince ordered the servants to put the coffin on the carriage to bring it back to his palace. But the road they were going through was a bumpy lane. The coffin was pushed hard and fell to the ground, and this dislodged from Snow White's throat the piece of poisoned apple that she had a bite of. Not long afterwards, she opened her eyes, lifted the lid from her coffin, sat up, and was alive again. The prince was very happy. He told Snow White the story of what happened and proposed to her. Snow White accepted the invitation to follow him to the palace to become his dearest person ever since. The prince brought Snow White back to her castle. Seeing her father again, Snow White told the king all the cruel things the queen had done to her. The king was very angry, and ordered the evil queen to be thrown into the dungeon, so that she would repent and regret for what she had done. Since then, the beautiful Snow White has lived happily ever after with her charming prince.